Welcome to the King Connections podcast. I'm your host, King, and today I'm joined by CEO and I like to say youth advocate, Randi Pupkin. Did I pronounce it correctly, Randi? I'm sorry.
Pupkin.
Pumpkin, yes. Pupkin, yes.
Pupkin.
Thank you. How are you doing today, Randi?
I'm great, and I hope you are as well. And thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. What's interesting before we get started, the beginning of the year, last year and the beginning of this year, several people who I was going to interview and work with had rescheduled because of COVID. And it was like everywhere around me, people were getting COVID. And I was like, wow. And then just last week, I got hit with COVID. So I'm literally just now coming back to work today. It's my first day. So it's a blessing to go
Thank God
through it
you're
again.
better.
Yeah, it's a blessing to be on the other side. That's for sure.
Yeah, I had it right after the new year.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So thank God you're better as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for investing the time and energy with joining me on the podcast today. I'll definitely look forward to this and our discussion. And one of the first questions I'd like to begin and really kind of set the context is, what would you say your spiritual energy number is between 0 being life sucks to 10 being life is awesome? Where would you say you fit right now?
Well, okay, I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
Yeah, so my question is, what would you say your spiritual energy number is right now?
Spiritual engine number.
Spiritual energy, I'm sorry,
Energy. 10.
Excellent. And the reason I asked that question, I'm a firm believer, like Einstein says, that energy is everything and everything is energy. And I asked that question because what I believe, if people are twos or threes, then they're not going to be engaged and they're not going to be present as far as being mentally there. And the podcast or the interview or the meetings that I have won't go well. So when people say they're 8 through 10, then I believe that's when the infinite possibilities and miracles can happen. So thank you for indulging me with that question.
I'm really excited for this conversation. Really excited.
So am I. So as we get things started, first question I'd like to ask you is, what do you see as your purpose in life?
Well, I feel like my purpose in life is to leave the world a little better than I found it. I know that's a very bold statement, but even if it's through the legacy of my children, my work, in some way, I feel like it's all of our role to try and treat people kindly in the world kindly and leave it better because you have existed.
Absolutely. Now, the term conscious leader gets thrown around quite a bit, particularly in my world of conscious capitalism that I've been exposed to and benefit corporations. And I'm always curious to hear how people who I believe exhibit the traits of a conscious leader define it themselves. So how would you define a conscious leader?
I would define a conscious leader as someone who leads with compassion and empathy, kindness, understanding, and in that leadership also teaches, well, through leadership is teaching the next generation of people to also lead in a similar way to create change.
Okay. Thank you. Absolutely. Of all things you've accomplished in your life, where you are in your life at this particular moment, what would you say you're most grateful for?
Well, I'm always most grateful for my health. So just as an aside, I have a rare autoimmune disease called scleroderma. And there was a time where I was diagnosed in 2013, and there was a time where I really thought I was like dying this slow, miserable, horrible death. And I couldn't understand like why it was happening to me. And I realized in so much in that process, but I never take my health for granted ever now. And I also know that there's not really a why. There just is and is. And you have to deal with the is, not the why. And so the first thing I'm always grateful for is my health. And if I have good health, and then the opportunities are limitless. So that's what I would say I'm most grateful for. And of course, my family.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, what are three behavior traits that you possess that you would say best describe who you are?
I guess the first behavior trait that I would say best describe me is I would say determined. And I'm very determined. I apologize for the phone.
No
Uh,
problem.
Determined and empathetic and um, character, kind.
I was going to throw kind in there. I was going to say I would throw kind in there, but you said it right second before I was able to say it. I definitely concur with those traits of what I know about you. Now we're going to shift the conversation, talk about more about your business and some of the service work that you do. So I'm curious to know what inspired you to create Art with a Heart?
So I had been a lawyer for 14 years, almost 14 years, and I became a lawyer because I really have a love of people and wanting to change the world and be a change agent. And I thought the best way to do that my whole life from the time I was a little girl was like going to be a lawyer. And I followed that dream all the way to reality and practiced law for 14 years. And I joined a firm and I got placed with a partner that did construction litigation and never really felt like I was using my time or my talents in a way that were productive or helpful to the universe. And one day I had this epiphany sitting in my law office after a contentious call with another lawyer. And I look around and my whole office is beige. And you can see now there's nothing beige in my office now. But everything was beige. And I just thought to myself that if this is chapter 5 of my life story and 25 is this dull and beige, I don't even want to read the book. And I get to write the book. So I decided to combine my love of people with my love of art. And I founded Art with a Heart from the desk in my law office and just started pounding the pavement after that.
Excellent, excellent. Now I know that the name pretty much says it all, but when you say Art with a Heart, can you kind of further describe what that entails?
Yes. So Art with a Heart is a community art organization that is going to be 23 years old on March 1st. And the core mission of the program is to enhance the lives of people in need through visual art. And I use the analogy of a tree. I often talk about the organization like a tree, and I planted seeds and it grew the trunk of the tree, which is what we call our core classes that happen in schools, shelters, group homes, community centers, hospitals, and senior facilities all throughout Baltimore. If people do not have access to visual art, we try and fill that void. So those are the places that we focus on, and the communities that are under-resourced, we try and fill that art need that they may have. Everyone needs to be creative and to stretch that muscle, and we truly believe that it is part of normal human growth and development for someone to have access to creating. So that's the trunk of our tree. And then the tree grew branches, and we have a teen leadership initiative, a workforce development program, a social enterprise retail store, and a very robust public art effort and community service initiative. It got way bigger than I thought it ever would.
When you positively impact people's lives, that's usually what happens. You create the energy, the momentum that attracts others, and then it takes its life on it's a life on its own in that context.
Yes, I guess that's true.
Now I'm curious. You mentioned earlier when you said you were an attorney and your office you worked in was beige, and now you founded an organization called Art with a Heart. Why was it so important to have art be a part of the service that you decided to give back?
So when I was young, I was raised by a single mother, and I'm 60 years old. So in those days, women did not leave their husbands, and my mother left her husband, my father, and she moved us into an apartment complex. And my love is the outdoors and fresh air and doing art, and during that time period in my life and our childhood basically dictates what's going to happen in the rest of our lives. I think we use a lot of our experiences to formulate who we become as adults. And that experience and that time, I found that art kind of set me free and let me be anywhere I wanted to be in my imagination, with whoever I wanted to be in my imagination. It just gave me a certain freedom and a feeling of joy. And I felt like when I was going to make a change in my life and it was going to involve people, I felt like it should also involve that opportunity for people who might not otherwise have that opportunity to engage in art, to feel the freedom that art can provide, the joy that art can provide. um, it's just that opportunity for self-expression, to recover from trauma. It just was all part of the thinking for me. So that's why art was essential. It was my joy, and still
Hmm.
is, actually.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I heard so much about this program prior to even meeting you. I didn't realize that you're one of the original board members. But I think this is fascinating. I definitely want my listening audience to really understand this program. So, the Elijah Cummings Youth Program, youth program in Israel. Can you describe what their program is and kind of what it serves in context?
So that program served that the mission of that program is to build bonds between the Black and Jewish community. It was started in Baltimore by Elijah Cummings, and it really focuses on social justice. It's evolved, but it focuses on building a network of fellows and a strong alumni network, that have learned and experienced communities outside of what they might otherwise not know, namely the Jewish community. So it's very focused on that. That's why they have a trip to Israel, as part of the program. And there's 12 students that are selected, and they spend 2 years in the program.
Two
It's
years. Wow.
11th and 12th graders.
Now, when you say 2 years in the program, 2 years in Israel, or
No,
two?
no, no. It's 2 years in the program, and they go to Israel for maybe 3 weeks.
Okay. Okay. And how many youth would you say have pretty much been in that program since you've been a part of it?
Well, I joined the board of that program maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I'm now the current board president. I don't know what their alumni count is. I know Victor Blackwell from CNN is an alumni.
Hmm.
They have some great, really treasured students who have passed through that program and are now carrying the torch of tolerance and understanding in a beautiful way.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I definitely commend you and Elijah Cummings for putting together that program and your work to continue that program going. I know the importance of traveling internationally, what it did for me personally, how it opened my eyes and how it allowed me to really gain a different perspective and change my paradigm and how I view the world. So I definitely understand how inner city youth who may not even never been outside of Baltimore City get an opportunity to travel to another part of the country, world actually, and just get a chance to see and interact with different cultures and how important that will be for them going forward.
It is, it's a beautiful thing. And I have to acknowledge that the parents have to buy into that too. And, it's Israel after all. And that's some people with the news that's fed to the communities here, sometimes it can be a scary place given the media, but, the parents buy in and allow the children to go. And it's incredible, and they come back and they've grown, just like you said, they've grown, they've learned, they're accepting. It's a total surprise to them too, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think it's required for sure in traveling internationally. Now, as we talk about youth, and as I got a chance to read your bio and talk to others who know you, one thing people that constantly comes up is your passion for working with youth in Baltimore. And I'm just curious, why is that there? Why you're so passionate about working with youth in Baltimore?
Well, I'm born and raised here, and my father was a tailor, and his father was a tailor in Baltimore, in West
Hmm.
Baltimore. I lived through the 1968 riots as a 6-year-old. I remember them. And um, I seem to always like fight for the underdog. And I feel like Baltimore has that underdog kind of reputation.
Hmm.
And I live in the ridiculously hopeful zip code. So I am always trying to elevate um, the underdog. And maybe I shouldn't even say that it's an underdog, because it's not. It's a great city. It has a lot of work to do. But there are people in this community that are just trying so hard. I call them nonprofit angels, or just angels. They might not even have a nonprofit, but they're working so hard to make things better for a specific community, or the whole community, or the entire city, or a small neighborhood. But there are so many people working towards goodness, and I recognize that. And I guess that's why I'm part of that club. I believe that, I truly believe, I know it's quoting a song, but I truly believe that children are our future, and we got to make it right. So we got to work on the schools. We got to fill the void if there's no art classes in a school, because every student should have access to visual art. And I recently read an article where 1,500 CEOs were questioned, and the number one leadership competency that they look for is creativity. I mean, a vaccine isn't created without a scientist being somewhat creative.
Hmm.
Climate change isn't going to be solved by somebody who isn't thinking creatively. No matter what you pursue in your life, you have to be a creative thinker. And if we don't allow our children the opportunity to stretch that creative muscle, we're really failing them, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I definitely see that service is definitely a part of your purpose, similar to mine, which I see we're in alignment with. And and when we have these higher purposes, it requires us to co-create with other people because our visions are too expansive for us to achieve individually. So, what are your thoughts about co-creating with others to achieve your higher purpose?
I think that I think co-creating is like collaborating,
Hmm.
and I don't think there's a substitute for collaboration. Everything that this organization does, everything that I do is a collaboration, whether it's building a team of co-creators and collaborators, a board that helps you co-create or collaborate, partners in the community that join you in your efforts. It's all about collaboration and partnership and co-creating. That's how you achieve success. Can't do it in a silo.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, of all the things that you do in your life, all the people that you touch, impact, and help, what do you do personally that brings you fulfillment in your life?
I am an outdoors woman. I treasure the outdoors, and being in the mountains or trees, hiking. I really enjoy hiking. It really, I can walk anywhere and just feel a certain freedom. It's kind of like doing art. It's your head, you can go anywhere in your head. So I really love the outdoors, and that brings me great joy. Also, spending time with my family is, I'm very grateful for my family and the health of my family members. And um, they should always just be healthy and happy and successful.
Excellent, excellent. What would you say of all decisions that you've made in your life? We make thousands of decisions a day and hundreds of thousands over a lifetime. Is there one decision that you can think about that you would say has been the most significant and most impactful in your life?
Well, for sure, taking the leap of faith of leaving a law practice, jumping off a cliff, not sure if I'm wearing a parachute, knowing nothing about nonprofit at all. I think that would probably have to be my most significant decision that I've made, um, and impactful in my life. I feel like it's also impactful in my children's lives, my husband's life. He married a lawyer, and now, he had to support me in this. And I was doing law by day, art by night. It was a little crazy for a while, but that I would have to say that changing my whole career path was the most impactful.
It could be an excellent title for your biography, Art by Night,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you write it. I like that. Now, we talked earlier about building connections and relationships and co-creating. And in my business, I'm a person who I look at myself as a connector. And as a connector, I have, in the engineering in me, I've come up with certain characteristics that I look for to help me to establish a connection with somebody. Because I've gone through life and I realized that not every person who promotes consciousness is a good person. So I had to come up with 8 characteristics, and I also had to hold that mirror up to myself to see if I exhibited those same characteristics that I'm looking for other people. So I'm curious to know, in your world that you operate in, and I know some of the organizations you partner with, people you co-partner with, and a lot of things the work that you do. Are there any key characteristics that you would say that you look for before you establish a connection with someone?
So, you asked earlier about like behavioral traits. And one of the things I should have said, because this applies to characteristics, is I really look for honesty. I really think that there is zero substitute for someone being honest. Um, we started this conversation and I shared a medical condition with you. Like, I'm a very transparent person and a very honest person, and I look for that and I almost expect it in return. So whether it's an employee or a board member or just someone out in the community that I'm doing business with, I expect there to be a transparent and honest relationship in our work. And sometimes that's hard,
It is.
because not everybody knows how to do that, which I think it's harder to not be honest.
Well, it speaks a lot to your character. You're absolutely right.
So that's the most important. And then I guess the other characteristics I would look for would be, they should have a sense of determination and like core value of hard work. I think today the waters are like are a little bit muddled about like what is actually hard work. Nothing in life that is uh, nothing that is impactful comes easy, and all of it requires a deep commitment. So that would be another characteristic that I would look for, but a deep commitment to work. And so those are the things I look for. Like, we all have to be on the same page about those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what I also do in my business is I help conscious leaders to identify strategic partners to help them achieve their higher purpose. I like to call it creating a connectingly intelligent tribe. And so I'm always curious to know, leaders like yourself, what do you look for in a strategic partner, or what kind of person would be a great strategic partner for you? Let me phrase the question that way.
So I really look for somebody who is a good listener. I think that is a trait that is underrated.
Hmm.
Listening is really important. That's how you grow and learn. And so when I'm looking for a partner, I want somebody who um, can listen to what I need and be a thought partner in a strategy. And, to be completely honest, they hopefully in that process, they'll have a network or a community or a connection that can help in whatever it is that we're strategizing.
Hmm. Okay. Now, I noticed that each time I've interacted with you, you always seem at that 10 level that you spoke of earlier. You're always very pleasant. And so I'm just curious to know, what are there any morning rituals that you go through to kind of keep yourself in that positive state and tune out all the negative noise that the media tries to throw at us, racism, poverty, death, and all the negative things that come out about Baltimore City constantly?
I think that I listen to the news in the morning. I read a lot of news in the morning. I start my morning with coffee and reading news, and I filter it. Do you know what I mean by that? Like I filter it, and I read it for edification. I want to learn, and then I process it, and then I think like, what am I doing today to help make something better? Because there's so much that can there's so much work to be done. It's like at least I get to come here. I get to look at the picture behind me that were made by 4-year-olds. I know that I get to spend my day working for the greater good. So the news has been devastating. I mean, it's just devastating. And I think that's when we have to dig deep and put one foot in front of the other and keep moving towards something better.
Hmm.
We can't give up. So I think that's what I do in my head. Like I read the news, I learn, and then I process and move forward.
Okay. Now, my next question, I'm a kind of fully ask and define it before I give you an opportunity to answer. And that is there a king connection you would like to meet? Now, what I mean by king connection, it's not necessarily a play on my name or my company's name. It's really a title or a label I given to a person who's achieved a level of success in life, whether it's professional, career, and someone you're saying, if I met this individual that we're in such alignment that we were to actually work together, co-create together, we can achieve great things. So not meeting this person as a fan, but actually meeting this person as an actual co-creator. Because for me, I've defined a process that I believe anyone that is accessible on the planet, and people want to connect with people who they're aligned with, regardless of where they may be as far as rank, society, or finances. So, like for example, mine is Magic Johnson. I believe that if Magic Johnson and I were to co-create and work together, we can do great things. I don't want to meet him as a basketball fan. I want to meet him as a businessman, as a community advocate, as a service person in that context. So now, with that being said, who would be a great king connection for you to meet?
Wow, that's a great question. That's a great question, and um, well, everybody's. I feel like I'm gonna be so average here, but everybody kind of says Oprah. I bet a lot of people say Oprah. She's a creative thinker, and she's not afraid to take risks, and I'm not afraid to take risks. And I think if I could have real time with her, real time, not, you know, it's like you said, not a fangirl, but like business owner to mega business owner time. I think that there could be something great that comes from that. Um, one of the things, this is a side note that I've kind of experienced lately. There was someone who has a very unfortunate situation. He's got a terminal brain tumor, and a board member connected me to this person who has a significant amount of money to give away and is talking to people and things like that. And when I spoke with him, I told him about the work that we do. And, we provide like 300,000 visual art classes a year, just in those core programs that we spoke about in the beginning, the trunk of the tree. The other initiatives we have add more to that, right? And when I was talking to this man, he kept kind of saying, well, take it national, or it needs to be bigger. Like, how would you scale this up nationally or internationally? And I kind of felt like we're not small because we're local. We are doing big work locally.
Hmm.
And to me, that's more important than just being big.
Hmm.
And I knew that I was never gonna share business philosophy with this man, because I've done things internationally with this organization. We have done things internationally, but our focus is Baltimore, and there's huge need here. If we were bored, I would think differently, but we have more work than we can handle. So why would we even have that conversation now?
Hmm.
We are doing big work locally.
I like that. And I definitely know that art with a heart is very respected in Baltimore City for the work that you do. Definitely very respected among your peers. And I know for a fact of the lives, like I said, that you've impacted with the work that you've done, with the dream, the vision that you've had. So your willingness and your commitment to stand local to Baltimore is definitely something that I know folks here in Baltimore. I can only speak for myself, but I know I definitely appreciate that commitment. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And as we conclude our last question, and I always love this question because I learned so much about a person, and I also get some great books based on this answer. So my question would be, is there a book that you would recommend that you would say has been the most impactful or most meaningful in your life, or most influential in your life, that you want to share? And if it's more than one book, feel free to share more than one book, but something that our listening audience can take away and say, that's a great book, we should go out and get.
So I don't read. I can honestly say I probably have never read like a self-help book in my life.
Hmm.
And so I can't recommend a book that like talks to someone about self-improvement or anything like that. I really like historic fiction. I think it's fascinating. Um, and I also like nonfiction. The book Not in My Neighborhood is a good book. I would recommend. I just spoke with a gentleman this morning who wrote the book My Zip Code Story. His name is CJ Gross, and I plan on having him in to talk to our students and volunteers and staff and board. So I recommend that book. And then I would just say that I think on the historic fiction piece, I just read a great book called The Gown, and I never
Hmm.
really thought about this, but it was about five women who actually embroidered Queen Elizabeth's wedding gown when she got married. It was after World War II, and all five women came together from different kind of war stories. And it's about these five women, and I thought that was absolutely fascinating. Who you never, at least I never really think that. Of course, it has a creative bent, so that might be why I liked it. But I never really thought that somebody hand embroidered the queen's wedding gown. It was.
Hmm.
I guess I thought everything's done on a machine like now, but that isn't how it was done, and it was a fascinating story. I also really like The Other Westmore. I think that book is I've bought that for all my students, and I think that book is like you have choices in life. You can either take, the path of positivity or a path of negativity, and so I think that's a great book too. So those are the four that all of them are a little part of me.
Well, thank you for sharing. And definitely, last book, his legacy is still growing now as our first Black governor of Maryland. So continue to keep building upon
Wonderful.
that. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I definitely want to thank you again for joining me on the podcast today, bringing your spirit, your energy, and being present with me, as well as sharing some wonderful insights about yourself. As we conclude, any words of wisdom you want to share our listening audience, as well as your contact information for those who might want more information about Art with a Heart and how to get connected with you?
Yes, thank you for that opportunity. So I just did a project where I had to write a letter to my younger self, and the ending of it really is that I once read that children and youth, they don't really hear a word we say, but they watch everything we do.
Hmm.
And so that has been like a mantra for me and has guided me both personally with my own children, but professionally with the youth that surround me and work with this organization. So we always have to be setting that example. So that's what I would say. And then as far as being in touch with us, our website is www.artwithaheart.net. And we have a nice social media presence. You can find us on Instagram at @artwithaheart_, Facebook, AWA Baltimore, and LinkedIn at Art with a Heart. So those are the three places. We're a little bit on TikTok, but Art with a Heart Baltimore on TikTok.
Well, you definitely lead with a heart. And that's one of the things that I admire about you. And it's been a pleasure connecting with you. And I look forward to the infinite possibilities that we can build in the future as well. And again, I want to thank you for being a part of the King Connections podcast. I want to thank our listening audience and listen to this episode of the King Connections podcast. And to our next episode, I wish everybody a blessed and productive day. Thank you.
Thank you.